Old Alabama gardener, and I'm talking about growing green beans, and I'm doing it my way. Folks, in this video, I'm explaining why I start seeds, even seeds like green beans, in soil blocks instead of direct sowing in the garden. My gardening usually starts in late January for some seeds like tomatoes and peppers, which take a long time to grow to transplant size. So the first thing I do on a warm day in January is I'll get out on the back patio and I'll make up a couple hundred soil blocks like you see me doing here in this next segment. For seeds like green beans, as you see me planting here, it only takes about 2 weeks to get them to transplanting size. So I usually start these seeds about the 20th of March with a plan of setting them out somewhere around the end of the first week of April. And I'll usually plant about 150 soil blocks of green bean seeds. If I don't use them all, well, that's okay. The seeds are relatively cheap. I'm showing you the eye of the bean, and that's where the sprouts, both the root and the stem that's going to go up, will come out. And I like to put that eye of the bean down. So now here we have a tray of green bean plants. They have now sprouted and came up in the last couple of days. And you notice that I have them under grow lights, and the lights are very close to the tops of the plant. If you put the light up high, then the plant is going to grow to try to reach that light, and you will have long, spindly, hard to deal with plants. You can see by my tag here that it's only taken them 4 days to get to the stage they are now. But in another week, they'll be ready to set in the garden. Now here in this tray are the same green beans that you saw earlier. And I'm starting to move them outside for a few hours each day. And that's going to allow them to get what they call hardened off, which means that they get acclimatized or able to withstand the bright sunlight and if you might have a little bit of a windy day. So here they are, bringing them outside for a couple hours at a time. If the weather is predicted to have frost, like in the next 10 days or so, or if the ground's just still too wet to do anything with, I will hold the plants in the house under grow lights until there's any chance of frost is past. So now these plants here that I'm showing you are already running, and I really need to get them in the ground. What I'm wanting to see with this addition of a rabbit manure is if it helps my soil any. So now let's get planting. I'm setting each of these plants about 9 inches apart. And from the tip of my fingers to the tip of my thumb is about 9 inches. So I use this as a measuring tool to space my plants out. I dig a hole, add a little bit of fertilizer, and you notice that every time I add a fertilizer, I also put a little bit of soil back over that fertilizer so that when I set a plant in there, the plant roots will not be directly touching the fertilizer. So now, as I said, these plants are already running, so I've got to be careful not to break the runners off. Now, it doesn't take a very big hole for these green bean plants, and about maybe a tablespoon of fertilizer, triple 13 fertilizer that I'm putting in the hole. And notice that I always put some dirt back over that fertilizer because I don't want the roots of the plant to be touching that fertilizer because it'll burn them. Then I carefully start the runner up into the wire so they can go on up to the top. After I plant this plant, you watch me put my hands down on the ground to get my spacing for the next plant. So now you see that I've planted one row directly under the vertical wire. Of course, the beans are going to climb up on that wire. Then I'll come back and I'll move out from that vertical row about 8 inches. And I will offset. That means I'll put a plant in between where the two plants are under the ones under the row. You'll see as I do that here. Now here you see I've moved out toward me away from this center line, and we're going to set another row of plants here, and we're going to space them in between. You can see the other two plants there. You're going to space them in between those plants, but all of the runners will go up that main wire that's in the middle. Now when I get that left side row done, then I move over to the other side and I'll do the same thing. I'll move out about 8 inches, offset between two plants, dig a hole and start planting plants along there. And then I'll have 3 rows of green bean plants that will all climb up on the same trellis. They'll go all the way to the top, they'll lay out over the top, and then we will have a lot of green beans. Now this trellis is 16 feet long, so 3 rows means that I got about 48 feet, if you counted it in a straight row, of green beans. So let's put in one more row, and that'll make our 3 rows, and then we'll be finished. You know what I always say, water it well, watch it grow.